So today is Yud Tet Kislev. Yud Tet Kislev is really a day that celebrates the Alter Rebbe and celebrates what the Alter Rebbe is all about. But I just want to before I talk about that, I just want to first talk about a little bit of who the Alter Rebbe is. You should know that the Alter Rebbe is one of these very unique people that we have in the history of the Jewish people. Number one, when he was 12 years old, he gave a class on Kiddush HaChodesh, the laws of Kiddush HaChodesh. If you ever tried to learn Kiddush HaChodesh, the laws of Kiddush HaChodesh are exceedingly difficult. Trust me, all yeshiva guys, open up a Rambam, take a shot at it. Open up a Rambam, go to Hilchot Kiddush HaChodesh and give it a shot, and we'll see how far you get. It is very, very technical stuff, very difficult stuff. A lot of people struggle on that part of Rambam. People that learn Rambam know that Kiddush HaChodesh is legendary for being difficult. The Alter Rebbe gave a shiur on Kiddush HaChodesh, and when he gave that class, the statement is made that the Chachamim in the room, and there were a lot of Talmidei Chachamim in the room, they couldn't find their hands and their feet because they were so blown away at the gadlut, the greatness of this boy. He was 12 years old. When, in general, his accomplishments in life are incredible. Number one, he wrote a Shulchan Aruch. It's called Shulchan Aruch Harav. Yeah. If you open up Ben Ish Chai, you open up Kaf HaChaim, you open up Yalkut Yosef, the way they refer to him is Hagon Zalman or Hagon Shneir Zalman. He's called Rabbeinu Zalman. That's how they refer to him. His Shulchan Aruch is incredibly chashuv. It's very important. There's a lot of chidushim there. There's a lot of things that are learned out there. You could learn a Gemara based off that. If you look at the notes, it tells you which shita and the Gemara he's rolling with. Many Hasidim, they follow his Shulchan Aruch as the bottom line for halacha. It's their bottom line. He wrote a ktav. If you look, there's, like you have Maran, you have, Arizal ktav. You have different ktavim for how do you write a Sefer Torah. Right? Beit Yosef, he has a ktav. There's a ktav called Alter Rebbe's ktav, how you write a tefillin, how you write the zuzot. He wrote a sidur Tehillat Hashem. It's Alpinu Sachar Arizal. They say, I don't know if this rumor is true, but I'll spread the rumor. They say that Rav Chaim said that really everybody should daven from this nusach if they were on the right level, or something like that, something along those lines. People that understand sidurim and diktuk know that the sidur of Alter Rebbe is very, very special sidur. There are certain chassiduts where they only allow the big chachamim, the big rabbanim to use the sidur. Everybody else doesn't use it. And the reason they don't use the individuals don't use the sidur is because they say that the sidur is based on Arizal and therefore it's meant for very great people. So the Rebbe has said on this claim that if the sidur, indeed, it's true, it's based off Arizal, but if the sidur was intended only for great people, then when he made the sidur, he would have included the kavanot of the Arizal. He didn't include the kavanot of the Arizal. He left it out. And he said that's a right that it's for every person. So the Alter Rebbe also spoke over 2,000 ma'amarim. The Alter Rebbe's library of teachings of Torah is massive. 2,000 talks. Each one of these do pages and pages and pages. There's Torah or there's Lakutei Torah. The Alter Rebbe's accomplishments are just humongous.
He also made nigunim.
He also made nigunim. That's also true. That's right. He also made composed nigunim too. We can't forget about that.
He only lived 64 years.
And he passed away at 64. But the point is that this, you should know, I just want to share one interesting thing. We have a picture of Alter Rebbe. The fact that we have a picture is a big deal because I don't think we have such accurate pictures of people of that time. But we have his picture because when he went to prison, they made a photograph. Huh? It's a painting, but it's an accurate painting. It's a very accurate painting. Tzemach said it. His grandson saw this painting, and he said that this is indeed my grandfather. He knew the Alter Rebbe firsthand. He said this is my grandfather. This is an accurate picture. Anyways, so this is all of his accomplishments. However, the thing you have to know is that everything we just said about Alter Rebbe. One more last thing. Sorry, I'm not done. One more thing of his accomplishments. He is the founder of Chassidut Chabad. He's the founder of the movement of its teachings, its Torah, and the Hasidic library. The Chabad, Hasidic library in general is massive, but the Chabad Hasidic library is huge, is humongous. I can't tell for sure, but I'm pretty sure this is all Hasidut Chabad right over here. This whole book is. Now this is only a fraction. This is not, this is the fraction of what you see here on the shelf. But he founded the Torah. He also founded the movement, the derech of serving Hashem. However, the important thing to remember is that everything we just talked about is really secondary to the Tanya Kadisha. The most important achievement in Alter Rebbe's life that he did for the Jewish people, and the reason Hashem brought him in this world was for one thing and one thing only, and that's the Tanya Kadisha. When he was 18, 19, he had a choice. He says, I had a choice. He already was an incredible Gaon. He was a Gaon Adir. He had already a following of Avrechim that would come and learn with him, and he had a policy. He was, one of the things you learn about Alter Rebbe is that he was fanatic about tzedakah. Torah learning and tzedakah were his two of his fascinations in life. These were things, he doesn't stop talking about Torah and giving tzedakah. One of his rules was that if you want to learn with him, you had to take your whole dowry and give it away to tzedakah. This was his policy. If you wanted to learn under him, you had to do what he did. He took his whole dowry and gave it to tzedakah. Back then, this was an avod that they did. They'd serve Hashem in poverty.
His
whatever.
father-in-law, I'm sorry to interrupt, his father-in-law was very rich.
Yeah, he's very, very, very wealthy. In general, Talmidei Chachamim back then, you were talking about in the late 1700s, the young guys, they had good heads, the people would pay a lot of money to be their father-in-law. They would promise them massive dowries, they could sit and spend their whole life learning Torah. Anyways, so when he was 19, 18, he said, I had a choice. I could go to Vilna and learn from the Vilna Gaon how to learn, or I could go to Mizrich and I'll learn from the Maggid of Mizrich how to daven. And he said, to learn I know how to do a little bit, to daven I don't know how to do. So I'm going to go to Mizrich and I'm going to see if they have Torah there, and if they have Torah there, I'll stay and I'll learn how to daven. So he came to Mizrich and he spent 2 weeks in Mizrich, and at the end of his 2 weeks, his conclusion was that the Torah he had hoped to see, he didn't see. So he left. When he gets out of the town, he remembers that he left a handkerchief behind. And we know from this week's parsha, it's past parsha, tzaddikim, they don't, everything is meduyak. They don't waste anything. Everything they have is very important. So he went back for his handkerchief. He went back. When he came back into the Beit Medrash, the Maggid was teaching, his Talmidim were around him, and a woman walks in and says, Rebbe, I have a chicken, there's a shaila on a chicken. So she brings the chicken up, the shochan had shechted the chicken, and there was a question on the lungs, whatever. So the Maggid looks at the chicken, and he asks the Talmidim, what do you think? Is it kosher, is it treif? So the Talmidim, whoever was present, the Maggid had 120 Talmidim. You know the story. Baal Shem Tov had 60 Talmidim. Baal Shem Tov had 100. Maggid had 120. He doubled his Rebbe. I don't think all of them were there at the time of the story because they didn't all come at once. But anyways, he asked them, "What do you think?" So the Talmidim start to argue it out. They say it's kosher, it's treif. They bring this svara, that svara, and the Alter Rebbe, meanwhile, he's sitting. He's getting his handkerchief. He's listening in the back of the room to everything they're saying, and he listens to the svarot of the Talmidim. And as he's hearing this whole argument break out between the Talmidim, he realizes that indeed the Torah that he thought wasn't here is here. And he decided after that, he's going to stay. And he asked to have an audience with the Maggid. He had an audience, a private audience with the Maggid, a private meeting. And when he met the Maggid in private, the Maggid told him, he said, you should know a couple of things. He says, number one, you should know, Baal Shem Tov told me that he had moser nefesh, he had self-sacrifice not to know you. Like Yaakov Avinu was 15 when Avram Avinu passed away. Alter Rebbe was 15 when Baal Shem Tov passed away. He could have known him, he could have met him. He only met him once when he was 3 for his Abshanish, and in that story they didn't tell him it was who he was. They just said he's a grandfather. They didn't tell him that it's Baal Shem Tov. And Maggid says, Baal Shem Tov told me that he was Moser Nefesh not to know you. And he said he didn't know you because you have to be my Talmid, and he didn't want that you should be Meshabed, you should be indebted, not indebted, locked to him. He wanted that you should be completely my Talmid. That's number one. He says, number two, you should know, one of the things Alter Rebbe told him when he had this audience was, he said, I've never worked a day in my life. I don't have a Rebbe, and I don't have a teacher, I don't have someone who guides me, and I never worked a day in my life. So the Maggid told him about not working a day in your life. He said, don't worry, you're going to work very, very hard. Because the Alter Rebbe had to deal with a lot of struggles in his life to set up Chassidut and bring it to where it was. Anyways, he told him, he said, you should know that Baal Shem Tov told me that I'm not allowed to seek you out. I'm not allowed to find you. And he says, I've been waiting for you. For the last 3 years, I've been waiting for you to come to me. And he told me, he gave me direct instructions, don't seek out Alter Rebbe, don't bring him in, he has to come on his own. Alter Rebbe's father, by the way, his name was Rav Baruch. He was a Talmid of Baal Shem Tov, but his father hid all that from him. Anyways, he told him, he said, listen, your job in life, what you need to accomplish is you have to take the teachings of Chassidut and make it something that every single Jew can internalize. This is important yesod people need to know. Baal Shem Tov taught Torah. There's a sefer called Keter Shem Tov. It's a sefer of Baal Shem Tov. There's another sefer called Tzavar Harivash, the will of Baal Shem Tov. It's not really his will, but it's his teachings. The Baal Shem Tov did not teach Torah for simple people. He taught Torah for big tzaddikim. The 60 tzaddikim that Baal Shem Tov had were tzaddikei yesod olam. These were giants of the time, and the Torah he taught was for them. When you learn Baal Shem Tov, you often miss the great depth there because it was never meant for me and you. It was meant for big tzaddikim. We can learn it too, but the real depth of the Torah is not there. The Maggid of Mezrich, who was his successor, was in a similar fashion. He enclosed it in Kabbalah, but it was the same concept. He really did not teach it for the masses, for the individuals. The Maggid told Alter Rebbe, your job is to take Baal Shem Tov's teachings and my teachings and make it something that every single person can be nimshach b'pnimiyut, can understand internally. I was in a wedding in Lakewood a couple of weeks ago, so there was this relative of mine from my wife's side. He's a learned guy, he's a guy from Lakewood, and he told me, he says, I learned Tanya. He says, I learned Tanya, but I learned it like a Gemara. That's the idea of Hasidut Chabad. Hasidut Chabad, the concept is that you take the deep teachings of Baal Shem Tov and Maggid, and you make it something that you can truly, really understand. A lot of people, they open the first page of Tanya, and because they don't understand what's going on the page, they get scared off and they run away. But if you know what's going on the page, you realize how much depth there is and how amazing these teachings are. Anyways, the Alter Rebbe started working on this objective, this goal. The Maggid also told him to write a Shulchan Aruch. That's why he wrote Shulchan Aruch Harav, that was from his Rebbe also. But he started working on writing the Tanya Kadisha. And maybe we'll talk later about the arrest, the liberation, the opposition. We'll talk about that later. But it's important for everybody to understand just how important it is to learn the Tanya Kadisha. It's not so easy. You have to use your head and you have to take it slow. But you have to know that if you don't understand something, it's not because the sefer doesn't make sense, it's because you don't understand it. And that you have to put your head to it and you need to learn with somebody. And if you don't understand, you ask somebody else and you figure it out. You learn it with a shir, you learn it with someone that really learned the sefer. And when you do, you will find a gem, mamash gold, a fire that doesn't exist anywhere else. So l'chaim, it's Yud Tet Kislev. It's a time to renew. It's a renewness for Torah. There's a minhag to take on a Masechta of Gemara also, by the way. There's another minhag you're supposed to do today. Take on a Masechta of Gemara to learn. But also it's a time to think about learning Pnimiyat Torah, and it starts with the Tanya Kadisha. L'chaim.